I'm concerned about a little bit too is credit. Credit is the lifeblood of small businesses in the economy. I want to make sure that we're seeing not just the SBA loans that the President was talking about today, but banks and credit unions actually starting to lend again. I think that's going to be another indicator that we need to watch out for.
You guys deal and live with this stuff all the time. For the rest of us are getting an education on the fly, and I think a lot of us didn't realize how much small business people in particular depend on credit. If you have a contracting company, you might put a couple weeks of payroll on the credit card because you're waiting for some big checks to come in. Now, it's a little horrifying and scary for those of us, to think about putting big sums on credit as a kind of standard business practice, but that's how it's done. Where are we on credit? Is it flowing to the extent that we need it to?
As a former small business executive, I certainly know cash flow and credit issues, and I think the difficulties are going to continue, but I think the important thing for this region and for small businesses and entrepreneurs in this region can feel good about is that we have a very good presence of significant financial services companies here that are devoted to this region. Secondly, we've got a good amount of venture capital here, $17 billion under management by the top 20 venture capital firms here.
But folks like me who know nothing about this, and we got about a minute left in this segment, we're hearing that the banks are getting money for free. They don't have to, to borrow it and then make money on the margin in terms of what they use that money for. So if the spigot is open, why isn't it getting where it needs to be?
It's about profitability at this point. The banks were able to use the TARP funds to be able to get stabilized again. They're starting to pay that money back. There weren't many strings attached, though, in terms of what they needed to do to be able to start lending back to the community, back to small businesses. I think they have to do that now. I think part of the things that we as a stock shareholder of some of these banks now, as the federal government, we need to put those kinds of requirements in place with banks.
I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place. They've been given this money and been told to lend, but they're also being given requirements and extra stringent requirements around losses and that kind of thing. So in terms of managing the risk but also loaning the money, I think they're figuring out how to best do that. Talking
with Matt Erskine of the Greater Washington Initiative and Danny Vargas of the Greater Dulles Chamber. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more right after this. Our continuing conversation with Matt Erskine, he's with the Greater Washington Initiative, and Danny Vargas, he's with the Greater Dulles Chamber of Commerce. Talking, of course, about the job creation plan that the President announced today. What haven't we talked about? What's on your thinking? What's in your radar in terms of getting this unemployment rate, which is stubbornly high at still 10%, getting it down to where it's a fraction of where it is right now, Danny?
I still am concerned about the long-term economic outlook for the country. We still have significant deficit spending. We have a huge national debt. Our national debt is now 56% of our GDP, whereas it was 37% 2 years ago. So I'm very concerned about the direction overall we're going in terms of government spending and so forth. I would love to be able to see a turnaround. They were talking about using the $200 billion that were unspent of TARP towards some of these programs. I would love to be able to see some of that money go back to reducing the deficit as opposed to additional spending. This program that the President talked about today does talk about $300 billion worth of new government spending. So I think if we can focus on taxes, focus on incentives for small businesses, get the jobs engine of this country roaring again, that small businesses, I think that would be a big boost to the economy right now.
What other thoughts do you have in this area?
I think what's important to focus on as we start generating jobs again is that they're balanced across both the skill and the income spectrum. And for this region, I think you can see that in both the new green economy as well as the infrastructure, where you'll see small businesses involved in the infrastructure investment. And again, this region has many crucial projects. Rail to Dulles, as Danny knows well, the Intercounty Connector up in Maryland, the HOT lanes on the Beltway, crucial for the national capital region. And when you talk to employers, they want to make sure that they can get their employees to and from work in an efficient manner, in a safe manner. And so these are going to be crucial for the long term. I mean, we're the national capital of the United States. Dulles Airport, a gem for this region. Massive improvements going on at the airport itself. To have rail there is key, and these projects are in jeopardy unless we get smart with how we continue forward.
Quick final thought.
Quick, I agree totally with Matt. I think the short-term shot-in-the-arm investment in terms of creating new jobs through infrastructure, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. Rail development is essential. We've got to get that done. I think at the same time we need to make sure that long-term we're creating sustainable jobs that are not just good for this region but for the entire nation.
Danny Vargas, Matt Erskine, thanks very much. This conversation will be continued, and we hope next time we meet the unemployment rate is lower than where it is now. We still make progress in that area. Thanks, guys, very much. I appreciate it very much. When we come back, the Redskins lose 3 straight, but in a strange